Hi everyone, my name is Stroebel and I am a colourist at Refinery, Cape Town. I have been a colourist for the better part of 13 years. And what I'm going to be talking to you a bit about today is just how, or why rather, higher budget films seem to have a stronger visual quality than lower budget films. So there are a variety of different tools and techniques to use in order to create a kind of glossier, higher end looking production. However, I'm just going to be speaking to you a little bit about the grade. Now, a colorist will have to work very closely with both the production designer or art director as well as the DOP. And together you kind of come up with a visual style. So what I could recommend you doing is just identifying the visual style that you're going to use for your production very early on, so that everyone's kind of talking in a very similar language with a similar idea. Now that might seem obvious, but even in the professional context, that very seldom actually happens properly. How does the palette or the grade combine with the lighting and lensing to kind of show off the art direction as best possible? So there are three really intrinsic things, in my opinion, that you need to focus on. Firstly is your skin tone. It is your critical element, is your character, and how good or bad they look. This is often used to convey emotion. Once your skin tone is landed in this kind of perfect zone for your visual style, you'll find that the rest of your scene kind of builds itself. Now, that works in conjunction with the second really important part, which is the depth within your frame. So me as a colorist, I'm working with my different tool sets to constantly try and create more depth, and I'll get to that in an example just now. How do you have a 3D element within your film that makes it look like you could almost dip your hand into the screen? And then thirdly is your color separation, and this is quite closely linked to the depth within an image. But if your colors separate and they have their own unique individual quality, then the sum of all those individual qualities will give a great image. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to just put an orange wash to create warmth within your image. You want to be able to separate it out and put warmth in different areas within your grayscale, whether it be your shadows, your midtones, or your highlights, but also be able to have separation so that your blues still appear blue, even though there's a warm tone to the whole frame. So let's dive into a few examples quickly, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so here's a shot from a recent short film I've done. It's a close-up, obviously, of a face, and the goal of this particular shot is to make this woman look incredibly attractive and show off her quality features. You'll find that's a very common brief. And what we're looking to do here is then identify, before we even commence with the grade, what are the parts of the image that we really like, and how are we going to use those three factors of skin tone, depth, and color separation in order to kind of highlight those parts. So I can see that obviously the way that this woman speaks is through her eyes. So I'm going to start really diving into her eyes as well as her lips. I can see there's elements of blue within that frame that I really like, and there's quite a strong warmth in her skin tone, so I'm going to keep that. And this is the grade that I came up with afterwards. So now I hope you can see from that image, by bringing out those eyes and those lips and allowing those strong highlights and pores on her face just to fall back a little bit, also coupled with the warmth and of her skin tone with the blue in the background and the flare that falls over her right cheek, you can see that now there's a much stronger depth and a larger appeal to both the image as a whole and our character individually. Secondly, I've just picked a wide shot of a short that we actually shot in isolation recently. This is with the director Rob Smith, a friend and colleague of mine. And basically the idea of this particular frame is to really show the focus on our main character, which is the woman in the front. So the image is very flat, it lacks contrast, saturation, and when I've graded it, that is our final image. So I'm working with the art direction. She obviously sits quite differently from the blue cushions that surround her. I've also dropped quite a bit of blue into the shadows and the door behind her, and this allows her top and her rich skin tone to really sing within the image. and ultimately it gives it a much more professional looking finish and is just generally much more visually appealing. So I guess the only thing that I've managed to actually resolve after the last couple of minutes is that it's very hard to tell you properly how to execute a perfect image in 5 minutes. But I do believe that the techniques that I'm advising here will make a lot of sense once you start applying them to your imagery. Um, I am going to leave my email at the bottom, so please feel free to get in contact with me. I am lucky where I've worked on a range of productions from very small, shitty small films all the way through to large scale features and commercials. So we have a kind of a good understanding of the various problems that will arise along the way. But if you do follow these techniques, focus on skin tone and different ways to create depth, whether it be through grading, through lighting, through lensing, through the way the characters move. If you focus on that, and then including the color separation in conjunction with your art director, you are going to start seeing a large increase in the quality of the work that you produce. So yeah, feel free to get in touch, and I do hope to be grading a lot of the material that you guys produce soon. Cheers.